Hey everyone, PV here, and today I want to talk a little bit about how to prepare for a Grand Prix. For most people, a Grand Prix is their first step towards competitive Magic, the first really big tournament that they play. It's possible that you've played, Pro Tour qualifiers before playing a Grand Prix or Nationals. These are obviously competitive events, but for most people, their first really big event is a Grand Prix. And I believe a Grand Prix has two defining characteristics. The first one is that it's open, it means anyone can play, and the second one is that it's big. So there's no qualifying process, which leads to there being a lot of people. If your tournament has these characteristics, then this video is going to work for it, right? I'm using Grand Prix because this is what I'm used to, but I basically mean any event that is open and big, whether that's a Grand Prix or Nationals or online or in person. Either way, if it has these characteristics, what I'm going to say here applies. And the main thing to know about these types of events is that because they are big and open, they're unpredictable. And that means that people will just play whatever they want, and it's very hard to pin down the exact metagame. In a Grand Prix, you have very different profiles of players, right? You have the players who just want to play for fun. You have the players that have a deck and will play that deck regardless of what's good or bad, especially in older formats, Modern, Legacy. People just have a deck that they play, right? They'll play that at a GP. You have the people that want to win no matter what. You have the people that just want to play the best deck, the people that want to try to game the system and play a deck that beats the best deck. So you have all sorts of people, and it's really hard to pin down what the tournament composition is going to be like. This means that I believe that for a big open tournament, it's usually not very smart to metagame very heavily. This means you should just play a deck that is good. In an open field that has game against a lot of different things, you shouldn't play a deck that you have to tune to beat one thing specifically. There's never a situation in a Grand Prix where everyone plays the deck, no matter how good it is. And because the field is usually so wide and unpredictable, especially in older formats, it's very important that you understand what your deck is trying to do. Because there's no way for you to memorize everything, right? If you're playing against a field that has 3 decks, you can just have a sideboard guide, right? You can have your friend tell you, hey, this is what you do versus this deck, this is what you do versus deck B, deck C, this is what important in those matchups, and that's it, and that's all you're going to play against, you're fine. But in a Grand Prix, you might play against decks that you've never even seen before, which means that you will have to think about things for the first time. So you need to think on your feet when you're playing a Grand Prix, and the best way to do that is to just understand your deck. So I think if you're playing a Grand Prix, especially in an older format, the older the format, the more important this is because there are more possible decks. So Modern, Legacy, this is true even more so, but for Standard it's true as well. The best thing that you can do is to understand how your deck operates so that you can adapt on the fly against whatever your opponent is doing. Because there's no way to understand what everything that your opponents are doing. And the way you do that, unless you're a very good player, is to just practice your deck a lot. And I think there are 2 exceptions for this. The first exception is you're such a good player that you can just pick up a deck, and in 1 or 2 days, you can play it to a satisfactory level. So you don't need 2 weeks, you can just switch at any point. If that is you, then yeah, play the best deck, because the best deck being played at a reasonable level is going to be better than the other decks being played at the same level, right? But honestly, if that is you, you're probably not watching a video about how to prepare for a Grand Prix. If you take me, for example, I believe that I have played certain styles of decks, like Tempo, Area Control, to a degree where I could just pick up a deck like that and play it the day later, right? And I would play it well. So for me, I would play the best deck in a Grand Prix because I think I can play it at a good enough level that I'm satisfied because I have a lot of experience. But there are certain decks where I don't feel like this is the case, right? There are decks that are just different from everything else, right? A deck like Affinity, some combo decks. These decks, you need experience with them to be able to make those decisions on the fly. And if I don't have them, I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to just change the deck in 1 day and play the tournament the day after, even if I believe it's better. I believe that competing is always the best way to improve at everything, right? You just go to a Grand Prix, the stakes are higher, the opposition is better, you're going to remember the things more, they're going to mean more for you. So you are going to improve regardless of what you do in a Grand Prix. But if your goal is to be a better player, more complete player, then you should challenge yourself a little bit more. And you cannot be a one-trick pony and be one of the best players. I think it's very rare that this is the case. Most of the very good players can play any type of deck, right? Your goal is to be the person who can change decks completely a week before the event and still do well. You don't want to be the person that needs 3 weeks to practice with a deck. So you want to be a complete player that can play anything. You want to be able to play, combo control, aggro, tempo, mid-range, all sorts of archetypes. And the way you do that is just by playing whichever deck is best and challenging yourself. And you know, you're probably gonna do worse. You might play a bunch of mirrors against better opponents and you're gonna lose, but you're gonna learn, right? And if that is your goal, becoming a better player, then I believe you should just be trying to play the best deck and not whichever one you're most comfortable with. Past that, my advice is very generic. Just try to have fun, enjoy playing the tournament. Magic is still a game, right? Regardless of anything else. So you should try to enjoy it as much as possible and understand that you are going to make mistakes. You are going to mess up. There's no way around that. Even the best players in the world make a lot of mistakes every tournament, right? You will lose games in a long tournament because you made a mistake. I will lose games because I made a mistake. John Thinker will lose games because he made a mistake. It happens to everyone. So don't punish yourself for it, right? Don't keep thinking about that and destroy the rest of your tournament because you made a mistake. Right? Yes, it is important to acknowledge, oh, I could have played better here, here, here. How do I stop this from happening in the future? That is a useful thing, but punishing yourself over and over because you messed up is not. So understand where the mistake was and try to think what you can do to not make that mistake again, and then move on. And finally, my biggest advice, I think, when it comes to Grand Prix is that you just go and play. Right? I think a lot of people, especially when they're new, they think, oh, I'm not ready for this tournament yet. I'm not gonna go, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna play side events because I don't feel ready. I don't feel like I can participate in a tournament yet. I'm not good enough. But I believe you should just go and do it because, again, I think the best way for you to get better at something is to compete. So if you're not good enough yet, that's fine. Just go play your tournament. You're gonna go, 2 and 3, but continue playing. You're gonna go 2 and 4, 2 and 5, 2 and 6, 2 and 7. That's fine. You're gonna get a lot of experience. You're gonna become much, much better. So going to a Grand Prix, preparing for a Grand Prix and going to a Grand Prix is much more useful for your Magic skills than playtesting a matchup for 8 hours with your friend, right? You're going to learn so much more from playing as better players, a different environment, that it's worth going, even if you don't think you can do well. So don't be afraid. It's fine to not do well. A lot of people don't do well at every tournament, right? Just go and learn and enjoy because it is a good experience and it is a learning experience.